Hello. I can't hear you at all.
Okay, how about now?
Yes.
That's better.
I had my microphone unplugged because my wireless keyboard was out of juice. So my only USB port was using that. So probably I don't need to use my keyboard right now. So we'll just see.
You know, you have the recording running already.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Okay.
Did I turn it
Yeah,
off?
it's fine. If somebody wants to listen to us chatter before we start, that's fine.
Going to turn on a different view so I don't keep flipping back and forth. Miss Catherine, where are you? You're in a nice hammock. That sounds
I
rad.
am. I'm on my back porch. It is like 70 something today. It is beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, it is 79. I've been getting so much sun too. It's been great.
Yeah, I'm still all white pasty, Springfield, Oregon, rain. Very gray outside right now.
We've had 3 days of complete sunshine, and I have taken full advantage of it with the kids. And today was technically my last official full day at the YMCA.
That's exciting.
Yay.
What does that mean?
Oh yeah, you didn't know. I ended up quitting, and I got my old library job back.
Oh, what are you doing at the library?
So I pick up books and I put them back down, or like I put them on the shelves.
I keep getting Zoom like.
Am I freezing, or is it you guys?
My internet is unstable.
I will move inside my house.
No, it's me. It's me.
Oh, I'll still move in because I'm pretty sure I'm probably gonna lose it soon. Oh, is that so? Okay. Well, everybody who's watching is now gonna see like the inside of my house. Hello, everybody. Just take you on a tour of my messy place. Oh, yes, I gave you food.
Can you
Don't yell
hear
at me.
this, Catherine? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I am I think my internet's unstable. I really wanted to sit down during this, but my standing desk has better internet right over, I guess. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not used to using the TALC Zoom room. I have my own Zoom, and so I don't know if we're on TALC Zoom or my Zoom.
No, you're on your own. You're on your own.
Okay. And that's the invitation I put out.
Yes.
Yeah. Oops.
Did you want to put the TALC one out? I'll go make one for you real quick.
No,
I wouldn't want to change it this late.
no.
Okay.
I just didn't know like which Zoom I needed to clock into, over there.
Oh.
But I don't know. Maybe I'll just try it and stay here. I don't know. If it gets annoying, then I'll switch. I'll have to leave my own room. Will that turn everything off if I do that?
You can just transfer the host to one of us, I think,
Oh.
unless you're recording to your computer.
I might be.
Okay.
Hello, Mary.
Hi,
Hello. How are you today?
it's very, very good. Thank you. It's nice to see you other than like after the podcast or after the program. I get to see you in real time. It's nice.
So where are you from?
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you write?
What do I write? Right now, thriller. The piece I'm working on is a thriller. Yeah, at the moment, I've taken a stab at women's fiction. I'd like to write it all. We'll see which one I can get the hang of, and that'll be the one I write. Yeah.
What do you like to read? That's always a good place to start.
Well, yeah, I was a late bloomer in terms of reading fiction. My background is scholastic academia, and so I didn't start reading fiction until 2017, believe it or not. And I tried to read all genres. I found the thriller and the mystery most appealing. I like the concept of women's fiction, but there were some that weren't very sad, but most that I read were just too somber, it was good, but it was not my cup of tea. I'm a counselor, so I get that in my life, in my real life, the sadness for 30 some years. So I'm looking for something a little different. I think that's why I went to thriller. Yeah.
I just read a thriller. I can't remember where I heard this interview with Carter Wilson. Was that on the Writers Inc. or was that on Creator Dad?
I don't know.
He's a thriller author, and
I've heard of him. Mm-hmm.
So I just finished reading that. That was a quick, I think I read that in like a day and a half. That was good. But I've decided that because I work in a bookstore, so I try to like branch out in what I read so that I can be more effective at work. But my wheelhouse is memoir, women's fiction, like contemporary magical realism, not so much the 100 Years of Solitude kind, but more like the last one I read was The Boy with the Bird in His Chest, or some of like Alice Hoffman's stuff has a little magic into it, or like light fantasy, where there's like a little bit of magic, but not like elves and stuff like that, So that's kind of what I like to read. So I was trying my hand at some mystery, reading some thriller, reading some fantasy, just better at work. So yeah, so I tried that Carter Wilson out, and he's good. It's fast.
There's so many good writers,
How many books I want to read. I'm trying to figure out how to so VE, I always panic when I see VE. Is it Aaron?
Yeah, that's fine.
All of a sudden, I know your name is Aaron, but then all of a sudden when I see the VE, I get panicked and think, oh my
I
God.
didn't know that, so that's good. Okay, good.
Okay. So Aaron, I'm trying to figure out how to make you a co-host in case my internet goes, I was going to say something.
Hover over his face, and then you'll see the 3 little dots, and you should be able to click those, and it should say make co-host.
Okay, cool. I was looking at the participant window. So this is saying I'm just changing the host, making him the host instead of me. Does that mean I'll lose capability too? There is no co-host.
Oh, there's no co-host?
Mm-mm.
I wonder if that's just because it's on yours and not the other one.
Ah, see, just because I'm an awesome editor doesn't mean I know how to use Zoom very well. All right, well.
You're doing okay for now.
For now, okay. I'm afraid if I don't make, maybe.
Valerie, worst comes to worst, we can always hop off and hop back on again. There's not that many of us.
That's true. That's true.
What are you trying to do?
Well, I just wanted to make someone else a co-host because.
So they can moderate.
So Roland, I was trying to not stand all day long. I've been standing all day long at my desk, and today
Sure.
I sit while I did this so that I could rest my legs and change positions. But this desk, 3 feet away from my standing desk, doesn't have as good internet. I don't know why. And every time I use this computer, I get unstable internet. So I was going to switch, and then people started showing up, and I wanted to make Aaron a co-host in case my internet went down, and then he could continue on while I got on the other, but whatever. It's
You could
4:03.
just make him a host and then he makes you a host.
It's fine. It's not a big deal.
All right, it's not a big
Well, if you go away, we'll still continue until you come back.
deal. But what if
I
it's
mean, we
my
can all be the host.
All right, so this is the Ask the Editor Anything. Does anybody have any burning questions, or should we just keep like kvetching for a little while and eventually something will pop up? Is
I
anybody?
have an interesting one, but I will let other people go first.
Well, I think you should start so that that gets people thinking about their questions.
Okay, so I know that you used to do line edits a
Mhm.
lot. I know you still do them occasionally.
Mhm.
For someone who is not ready to hand it off to a line editor yet, what is your recommendation for them learning to line edit before they go off and give it to someone else so it's a little bit smoother?
Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid, because they have all the reports, and you'll see in real time like why this is flagged. Is this a grammar thing? Is this a style thing? Is this a poor word choice? And so you can learn that way. I'm trying to think. I've given this workshop a couple times about how to self-edit before you turn it over to the editor, because you will save money if you do that, because it's not as usually when I get a potential client, I offer them a sample edit. So I will ask them for 5 to 10 pages, and I will time myself on how long it takes me to do the edit for the 5 or 10 pages. And I'll get a feel for if this is going to be a really heavy edit, or if this is going to be, you know, if it's every, I don't know, 2 or 3 paragraphs, I need to change something, that's a nice, easy edit. But if I'm changing like every other sentence, then that's a really heavy edit, and it's going to take like 4 times as long. So it's better if, when that happens, I usually let them know they're not quite ready for a line edit, and that I would recommend them using some software or something before they, you know, hire somebody. I'm trying to think.
So
Yeah.
I didn't, if you're still going, this can wait.
Oh.
It's a follow-up question.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to remember, like I was pulling from my my memory on the class that I taught, what kinds of things. I guess I would know your weaknesses. So when it comes to sentence structure, and also any typos that you tend to oops on. For me, I say the word just a lot. I'm just trying to tell you that, oh, I just really want to get to, so just shows up in my writing all the time, and I have to take it out. It's just a filler word. And so I can go through and take that out. Somehow when I'm typing, I don't understand this. They're not similar at all. They don't belong together at all. They don't, anyway, but I type the word to instead of the, and vice versa. I don't know what, my fingers and my brain just have a miswire there, and a spell check isn't going to catch that because it's not spelled incorrectly. So looking for those, doing that kind of stuff, reading it out loud to yourself, just going through and reading it. Some people like to print out their manuscript and read it hard copy because you catch things better that way. Or you just use a different part of your brain, I guess, you know, to look at it. And so you can catch stuff that way too. I've also heard some people, I've not done this, but I've also heard some people can set up their computer to read it to them. And so it's that weird, like computery voice. So it's actually easier to catch a glaring, mistake because it's a weird computery voice.
I send mine to my Kindle and my Kindle will read
Oh, okay.
in the
Cool.
worst computer voice you've ever heard. It's so bad because it's such an old Kindle.
And when the computer's sounding it out, they sound it out verbatim, so you catch all the spellos. So my follow-up question for you though is sort of more on for editors. What if you get a page or your first 15 pages and the author has really edited those, but they haven't edited the rest of it? And so when you get the actual manuscript, you're like, oh, this is not even close to what those first 13 pages were, right?
It's happened to me before.
That has, I'm sure.
So you have two options. Sometimes I've asked people to send me random pages for the sample, but I don't actually like that because I like to know what the story is about. And, I like the introduction. I want to see the beginning, and that helps me set the stage a little bit. If I'm dropped right in the middle, I don't really know, obviously I don't know what's going on. And so I don't know if this is, sometimes the word choices and sentence structure are genre related. And if I haven't kind of gotten introduced to the genre, then I don't know. So you can ask for that. If that doesn't bother you to be dropped in the middle for a sample, then you can do that.
Why wouldn't you just ask for the whole book?
Just because it's a sample edit. Oh, you mean then you could check? I guess you
Yeah,
could
you could just say, I'm just going to sample edit like the
1 through
first
4
chapters or whatever, but
10 or 1 through 4 and 180 to 185.
if they sent you the whole thing, then you could just spot check wherever you like. You could go, into the middle and see, is this consistent?
You could, for someone looking for a price quote, I don't know. I mean, as you're going to get some people that are worried about us stealing their work, so if an author sends you the whole book, new authors are always worried about someone's going to take my idea, and that's not obviously going to happen. But I don't know that they would be interested in getting the whole book. But yeah, you could do that when it's happening after you've taken the job and you're in the middle of it and you've given them a price quote already and you realize, wow, this is way harder than I thought. And it's not going well and it's taking too much time. Then what I've done is email the author and said, because, okay, this actually happened to me. This was a person I'd worked with before. She was a repeat client. So I didn't ask for a sample because I had worked with her before. And her writing style hadn't changed a lot, but something happened with this draft. I don't know, but it was way harder. And the price quote I gave her was not going to be enough. So what I did was emailed her, told her, this isn't a proofread. She asked me for a proofread. So I said, this is not a proofread. It's really needing line editing. And so what I've done up to this stage, I think I'd done, 4 or 5 chapters. Up to this stage, I've been line editing at my proofreading rate. And I'm not comfortable doing that for the rest of the whole book. So here are your 3 options. I can continue to proofread this, but it's not going to be ready for publication. And I don't recommend that you do that. I can continue line editing, but then I would have to charge you a different rate. Or you can take it, make it ready and bring it back to me and I'll finish at the proofread rate. So I gave her a few options and I felt good about doing that because I explained the situation. I set a boundary for myself. I didn't want to continue. I didn't want to do poor work at a proofread. I didn't want to give her a bunch of extra work at a proofread rate. Does that make sense? Is that helpful at all, Sharon?
That
No?
certainly answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
What did I, now you've got to close the loop here. What did she decide?
She said she looked at it and she agreed that what I said was true. And she asked me to line edit it at the line editing rate for the rest of the book.
Okay, well, that works.
It did. I mean, I was happy to do it. I was happy to do the proofread rate. Oh my God, that's hard to say. But I wouldn't have felt like it was work that I wanted my name attached to. You know what I mean? If she tried to publish it like that without fixing stuff. Next question.
Yeah, I'll do it for you, but please don't put my name in the book.
Right. I actually did that one time.
That's a good way for them to know that you're serious. Like maybe their book needs some work.
I actually
I don't want to be
client
associated.
once. He wants-
Valerie,
Did you said that to a client once?
yeah, he wanted to put my name in the acknowledgements, and I said, "Oh, please don't. I don't want to be listed as." He's like, "Okay."
It was that bad?
When you're an editor, you try really hard to keep the author's voice. And so I dutifully did that. And I didn't really like the author's voice. So yeah, I didn't really want my name attached to that. But I don't know if he knew what that meant or not. But yeah, I said, no, I don't want my name in the acknowledgements. Mary,
Valerie, I know what line edit is, but what's the difference between proof and compared to line?
Could you go through all three too? I think it would, the developmental as well, so that we all know the
Yeah,
difference.
developmental, yeah.
yeah, the developmental edit is kind of like the story analysis. Story analysis, developmental edit, book doctoring, they all kind of bleed into each other a little bit. Story analysis is where an editor will read the entire manuscript and kind of find problem areas, I don't like using the word rating and grading, but that's kind of what you're doing. You're just sort of looking at the parts of story and seeing where they can be improved. Not where they can be improved, but like, overall, does the dialogue work in this book? Overall, does the conflict work, or the pacing, or the character development? So it looks very macro at stuff. Developmental editing does do that, and then also might share, okay, well, I think if you take this chapter and put it at the end of the book, then it will be stronger. And if you in chapter 45, if you move this paragraph up to here, so it's really helping you restructure. And story analysis or assessment is not restructuring it. It's just saying, like, here's the report, here's the things you need to work on. So they kind of they bleed into each other a little bit. So that's the developmental edit, or the assessment, or the analysis. Book doctoring is another term that you might see floating around, and that's kind of what they do too. Then there's line editing or copy editing. That's used synonymously in some editors. Actually, I've heard it change. I think that pretty much, this is going to sound confusing, but a lot of editors use different terminology. So you can always go to like the Editors Guild website and kind of get an idea of some definitions as well. But for the purposes of today, I would say line editing or copy editing is the sentence structure. You go line by line and you make sure that the grammar works and that the sentence flows well, that there's no awkward, like, oh, this is really clunky sounding. It's kind of about the rhythm of it, word choice, that sort of stuff. So it's really line by line doing that. Proofreading is just looking for typos, making sure the punctuation is right. That's all. So you're assuming as a proofreader that all of the line editing has been done and you're just looking for errors at this point. And so you can go really fast through the read and it doesn't take very long. And if you're just working on punctuation or looking for a typo or two, then the cost is much less. Proofreading is probably the least expensive edit that you'll hire for.
But it's also intended to be the last step. So the rest of your manuscript needs to be in pretty good shape.
Right. It's so funny because I think that proofreading is so easy and I have no problem doing it. I quite like it because it's an easy job for me. But some people don't like it at all and refuse to do it because they're terrified of letting any, like, it's the last stage, you know, and they don't want it to leave their desk with having, you know, anything wrong with it. They don't want the pressure of having an author put it out into the world saying, yes, it's perfect now, and then having it not be perfect because you've missed something. But
I don't ever think I've seen a review that said the sentence structure was clumsy, but you see all sorts of reviews that say that, oh, there were so many typos, the editor in these books needs to be edited.
yeah,
I have actually seen reviews that say the sentence structure is clumsy.
I never,
And I also in the past 10 years have read one book that I didn't find a typo in, traditionally or indie. I
yeah.
mean, typos come through, like they slip through. There's a lot of words in a book to make sure that none of them have a typo.
It's meant to be at that point. If it goes through that many editors and that many people's eyes and gets through, that typo was supposed to be there.
They didn't
Once
call
again,
it
the
author
ones-
voice.
It was the demon. The demon put them back in afterwards. There's a Catholic demon of something who
he's the worst
demon of
one.
scribes, and he goes in and he re-adds errors after the completed manuscript. My husband told me about him.
I mean, I get when a typo is like of instead of or something like that, but it's like when it's like an actual misspelled word that every spell checker should get, like those are like, it's crazy to go through.
So may I ask something, since you're all editors and you're all experienced, I just want to ask you what suggestion you might have for me. When I started out, I got connected with a coach, of course, and nice person, very nice person, but not experienced as an editor. And one of the problems I have finishing stories is editing scares the hell out of me because of the experience I had with the coach, meaning that the story analysis, every line, there was something wrong with it. You know, she's not in her ordinary world. She da 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 da, she da 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 da. And by the time I was done, I didn't even recognize the story I wrote. And I thought, why am I doing this? So I have a automatic, it's not a fear, could be a fear. It's an automatic repulsion. That's what it is, repulsion to editing. And I know as a counselor, one of the things I always challenge myself is, what I help my clients with, you just have to get over this. So you desensitize and you work on it. But quite frankly, every time I get close to finishing something, that's the resistance, is that I have to deal with editing. I probably, if I had the money, I'd go with a ghostwriter. Just to have them. So do you have any suggestions on, because where I had the most criticism, well, of course, line edits, starting out new and sentence structure and all, I have so much to learn, and I'm doing it at the pace I can, the time I have available. But the story analysis is critical to me, because if they're not getting what I'm trying to put out there. Now, I think two things. I stumbled across Jay Thorne precisely because of this coach. And I think that's why I was supposed to be with her, believe it or not, because the 3-story method is helping me a great deal. And I think Jeff Elkins is also the dialogue. If I can do the story in dialogue, or mostly in dialogue, at least to start out. I believe that I will have combated some of the trepidations I have with the story analysis piece. It may be a different framework, to tackle this issue with me. I'm not sure, but that's what I'm going to use as strategy. So, so I don't know. So if you have any suggestions, I'm open to them,
I think that's a good strategy that you have so far. I just had a clarifying question. When you said you got a story analysis done, was that?
Well, it wasn't called that, but she didn't, I forget what she called that. You pay, well, whatever, you pay and then you have a Zoom call and she goes over. She was not an editor, and she'd be the first one to admit that. And I didn't know enough to not let her edit, so yeah, it was, she would critique what I think is included in story analysis: ordinary world, what time of year is it, where are you, exposition, things like that. And I was just starting to write.
So did you
fiction.
have a completed manuscript that you gave her, or was it just a partial?
I didn't give it to her. We went we did a couple pages,
Okay.
and I threw it out. I've thrown everything out I've written. It's in my head, but it's in my head. I can recreate it, except the thriller. I haven't thrown that out yet. But it's halfway done. So there's still time.
I just want to say you're not alone. I
Good.
think most
Okay.
writers have thrown out the first 3 or 4 novels that they've written.
Good. Okay. That makes me feel good.
You're not alone.
Good. All right. Thank you.
And you may not believe it, but you are probably getting better with each one. So,
I hope so. Yeah.
Also, I think it's really important to, when you are asking for feedback from someone, to be really specific about what kind of feedback that you want. And maybe you don't know what's useful yet or not.
What I want. Right.
Learn.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
be very clear about your expectations for the constructive feedback, for one. Also, I wouldn't show anybody anything until the manuscript is completely done, personally.
Okay. Okay.
I was in a critique group for 10 years and we met every week. And it was great. It was what I needed at first to get writing and to have accountability. But along the way, by year 10, I was starting to show up with like rough draft stuff, which was then being edited or critiqued from my partners. And you don't want to edit rough draft stuff. And in doing that, because I was just bringing them what I was writing that week. So I'd be rough drafting this novel I was working on. I'd show up and I'd give them this stuff and they would give me feedback on the rough draft, which then ended up messing up with my writing process, because
Yeah.
I would just stop writing because I would be so worried about making it good because I was going to get it critiqued. And that's not what you want to do during rough drafting. That's not, that's too stifling. So just write the whole thing and then turn on the editor brain and be ready for the feedback and be specific about what kind of feedback you want. And so when you hand someone, I wouldn't even hand someone a rough draft. Personally, after a rough draft is done, I let it sit for a couple weeks. Then I print it out and I grab a marker and I read through it and I start slashing or making notes or whatever as I read through it. And then I put those changes into Scrivener or whatever word processor that you use. And then I print out that, or then that is the draft that I would send to somebody like a story analysis or someone that could just look at the whole thing and see if the macro pieces work. I don't care about line editing right now because it might be that I'll chuck the first 5 chapters because they're all backstory or it's all info dumping and it doesn't really matter to the story. And I don't notice that until after the developmental edit has come back. Does that make sense? So it sounds like what you received feedback on was rough draft line edit stuff, which is wrong timing. And that's probably what soured you on everything and kind of traumatized you, really, you know?
It did. And, you know, it's just something I have to get past, but that I think the 3-story and I think the dialogue may help me do that. And like you said,
So-
get the whole thing finished, you know?
Also have,
So as I was going to say to that, so I was going to speak to that is my drafts, my first drafts, what I would call a draft 0, which nobody's going to see. That's for me only. And that's what Valerie was talking about. But my draft 0s are a pure dialogue. There's no description. There's no anything. It's just people talking. I don't even sometimes put who said what. I'm just dumping out that
That's
dialogue.
what Jeff talks about in that one course, right?
And that's my method. It like everybody's got their own way of working.
I'm going to try that. Right.
But I wouldn't show that to anyone.
No.
also, Mary, I would say that when you do ask for feedback, that it is somebody that you trust or that you know knows what they're talking about. Or what I mean is that they have the vocabulary to communicate with you. If they just say, well, I really like this, that's not going to tell you anything. And that's just going to hurt. You know, it's not constructive. You want to have vocabulary you can use, like Jeff's vocabulary. My internet is unstable. Can you still hear me? Can you see me moving?
Yeah, we've got you.
Yeah, thank you for the comments.
And I know with me personally, I am at that stage where I've also looked at the book that I'm doing. I've done 5 like self edits to it. I'm in the process of the 6th one. And now I'm like, ooh, I think somebody can look at it. Clearly I was still wrong. It still needs a lot of work. But at some point, like you will get through to a point where you're like, okay, I'm ready for someone to look at it, because if I look at it anymore, I'm chucking it out the window.
Also, when you receive feedback from an editor, it's very normal to, you know, want to bury yourself for a little bit and pull the covers over your head. And that's totally normal. So just allowing yourself the space to like process what you hear. And then after a few days, you can contact the editor again and, you know, ask clarifying questions, something like that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get a tougher skin with that. And I think it's because the whole field is new to me, the experience of writing. If it wasn't new, I wouldn't take things personally. I'd be able to differentiate and keep the boundaries. And I think that'll come with maturity in terms of the writing practice.
And it's also, I think it's good conditioning and what would you call it in your field? Desensitization.
Yeah.
To the fact that once you publish, you're going to be putting it on Amazon, and reviewers they don't care if like, they will say the nastiest things and they don't care. So it's good desensitization for that.
Yeah, but you see, I can't even think that far in advance. I'm just thinking about the rough 0 draft, you know.
Yep. Get draft 0 done, and there's a huge accomplishment.
Right.
Another one last thing to say is on the feedback situation. Once you do get feedback, what I like about getting feedback from an editor is that I now have a checklist to work with. So I look at it as tasks then. It's not, I try not to think of it as a, you know, it's not an attack on me, the author, and it's not even an attack on my story. It's just, okay, here's the list of things I need to work on now. The first thing is going to be whatever, dialogue. I'm going to go through the whole manuscript and address the dialogue issue all the way through. And then I'm going to go to the next thing on the editor's list, and I'm going to do that thing all the way through. So it's just a checklist. That's a way to help you look at it.
I'm trying to understand JP's rubric. You know, I'm going through that and trying to compare, you know, the rubric he came up with.
Which one? You talking about J or JP?
Story, J. I called him JP. I get these initials, JP, the story rubric, and I'm taking my characters and seeing if they're under, whatever he calls it, underdeveloped, and which they all are, every list. And then or a little bit, and then I'm trying to reach towards the excellent, but it's a good gauge, from where to work. I would assume you guys use that, right?
Yeah.
Something similar to that, being 3-story editors, right? Mhm. Okay.
And when you use the rubric too, what it might, when you get a completed rubric back from an editor, sometimes it looks dim. But again, when you address one thing on the rubric, often it solves the other stuff.
Of course, systemic, yeah.
Yeah. So if you are fixing the internal dialogue of a character, then that will help with the character development and the emotional tone. So it just it self-resolves. So it might look bad when you get feedback, but really it's not as bad as you think.
And the other thing to remember is that you don't have to have a story that has everything marked excellent by your editor for it to be a good story or a story worth reading or a story worth buying.
Okay.
Some of that is going to be author voice. If you do less description and less world building, but you do more dialogue, just, to pick an example, some of that is going to be genre dependent. Some of that is going to be author dependent, and so, when I do diagnostics and I fill out the rubric, I'm pretty hard, but that doesn't mean that, Sharon is nodding her head that I'm pretty hard. Okay. But that doesn't mean that, just because I mark something, sort of somewhere between fair and good with the tie going to good, doesn't mean that your story is bad or that you're a terrible writer. It just means in some ways that that's my opinion and these are the things that I need to see. But then it's your job as the author to choose to implement those changes or not, because sometimes what I see is not what you're going for.
And
Yeah,
sometimes good enough is good enough.
Mhm.
And
But-
I also think the relationship you have with your editor, think of it, it's a team effort. They're there to help improve your book. If you have an editor that you can communicate well with, I mean, it's a lot like picking a therapist. Not everyone is going to be a good fit. And somebody who's I love Erin as an editor. Somebody else might hate Erin as an editor. It's just, it's how you work well together. But if you look at it as, here's somebody who's working as a team to help make the work better. And if you see it as the work and not as an extension of yourself, you can step back from it a little bit and maybe not have that trauma reaction, right?
Well, and see, the thing is, what's wonderful about, since I've gotten to know these groups, the dialogue and the
Whatever we're called.
TALC.
TALC, yeah. These acronyms, is you actually use tools that make sense to me. Before, when this person was doing it, there was no guidance. There was just what she thought was her expertise, her experience. There were she wasn't using like a rubric or 3-story method or something that, I don't care how much something's marked up, if it gives me some place to pivot from, to try and learn, I'm fine with it. It's not having anything, so that's the difference too.
And when you get the feedback, I know that the first time I got feedback, I did the mistake and handed it to my family. So the feedback was brutal. And I stopped writing for about a good 2 years because I was like, wow, my writing is complete garbage. None of them understood what I was trying to get at. So when I started going back and would hand off my stuff, I'd be like, read, please. And it would take, I learned, a day. So if they give me back feedback, I'm not looking at it right away. I'm going to take that breather Then I'm going to look at it and then I'm going to put it to the side again, take another breather, and then see what they were saying. Because I do get that gut reaction to be like, you don't understand my book. And then if I take that breather and look over and be like, okay, what are they actually saying? Then that has helped me to calm down with that feeling of everybody's just going to think that this is garbage. So taking that moment to breathe and not immediately jump down the poor editor's throat will help you too.
The very best thing that I ever
I would
did.
like to point out,
Oh, sorry, Roland, you want to talk?
yes, I do. What I would like to say is, so for a developmental editor specifically, like what you're getting is like, you're getting of what in theory you could eventually do for yourself. Like one day you will be able to, like Neil Gaiman doesn't need a developmental editor because he's written many, many, many books, right? But early on, somebody was going through his stuff and saying, you know, this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed. And then later on, he had to go through the like four cycles, then 3 cycles, then 2 cycles. Now he can do one rough draft and polish it up and send it off to his line editor. And the line editor might find a couple of things, you know, that like a plot hole or something, but it's like going to be minor. So what you're getting, like if you work with any of the 3-story method, that's hard to say fast. Any of the editors, the TALC editors, you know, what you're getting is like, you're getting like a head start. You're getting like a, hey, you know, you're getting something. They're just there to help you. But we feel like they're criticizing sometimes. Like I've had an editor too. And I felt like, oh, at first I felt like I was being criticized, but it wasn't. They were like, oh, you know what? Here's what you can do to make your story better. Right. And that's the thing, but we're really get inside our own heads and get sort of like, oh, they're going to be critical of this thing. Well, they might be critical of the words or the bits and bytes on the virtual piece of paper, but it's really there just to kind of make you a better writer and teach you how to do it. That's why, like, you could hire a ghostwriter and tell them what your story is and they would write it, right? And they might have already, you know, and then like, you're never going to see it again, but you will have learned nothing.
Right, that's true. Yeah, good point, Ron.
On piggybacking on Catherine's comment, the best thing that I ever did for myself as a writer was to understand that my husband was not my target market. He was not my reader, because I kept wanting to write something that would impress him, and he doesn't read what I write. I mean, he does because he wants to be supportive, but like that's not the genre he reads. So
My husband hasn't read anything I've written, and I don't ask him to.
My boyfriend got a paragraph in and then tried to line edit like it was a history paper and told me he would not read it until it was published.
Well, that's why I don't ever show my stuff to like family or friend. Like I don't ever let anybody, like the first time a stranger or worse, somebody I know reads it is when it's like an ARC team level, you know, advanced reader copy level or beta reader copy level. But even then I have to know that they're going to be able to take it at the level it is. Like if they're going to be like, I make it pretty clear, don't line edit this. There's going to be all sorts of typos. I'm going to use wrong words. This is sloppy. What you're looking at is the story. Does the story work? And, you know, I try to proofread it enough to where it's readable, but I'm really looking at the structure, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, that just goes back to making sure you understand the feedback you're looking for and that the people you're asking to read your stuff understand what you're looking for too.
Yeah. And that's also why I stopped going to like critique groups of other writers, because like, unless they read my genre, it's, I mean, they're nice, they mean well. And like some of it could be like, if they understand basic story structure, they might be good. But I don't know, they're also like just very, like a lot of like the kind of writers that typically go to critique groups are so new that it's like, it's only going to help somebody who's very, very beginning, right? And a very beginning writer, in my opinion, unless you totally luck out.
My experience with critique groups too is I find they slow you down as a writer. you know, you're doing a scene a week. If it's a good group, right? You might be doing a scene a month. And for me, that was just, it's too slow.
So the big elephant in the room is that editing costs a lot of money. And if you've got to do it 3 times for each manuscript, that, you know, adds up. So there are workarounds. Things that I've done in the past for myself are having beta readers be your line editors. Having alpha readers, the ones that read it at that second draft level where you're like Roland was saying, you're not looking for any, there's going to be typos here. Just tell me if the story works. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I hired a college student one time to line edit my stuff. And so that was like $15 an hour. Trading with other writers, that works too. Picking at least one of those to pay for, and that I think will be dependent upon the author, you know, like maybe if it's a first book or two like this, or if you're starting a new genre, maybe the developmental edit or the story analysis will be really the one you want to pay for, because that's really what you want to get right. And then the sentence structure, maybe you can just have a couple of beta readers look at it and make sure that, you know, nothing's clunky or whatever. And then use like pro writing aid to go through for the final grammar and punctuation typo check. So there's ways to do it less expensively, but it's not going to be as quality. That's my opinion.
I saw, I think, I don't know if it was on the website or one of the emails or newsletter. I think with all of you, they have, or not all of you, but some of you, and then they have price, they have a price or a fee or a range, but it's not divided into, I mean, I'm not ready at all yet, but it's, I haven't gotten zeroed done yet, but the story analysis, they don't separate it into story. So you don't do it by hour, like a counselor does. A counselor does it by session, by hour. You don't do it that way. You do it.
Word count.
Oh, by word count.
That's, you can get book coaching by hour. A lot of the editors.
But what do they do?
offer
They're
that as
not
well.
editor. They're not editors.
No, a book coaching is it's a different ballpark altogether.
Yeah, that's, but I mean an editor.
It's a generic term, book coach,
Oh,
right?
right.
It could mean a variety.
It can mean
of
any.
things.
It can mean, yeah, exactly. It can mean a variety of things.
Usually,
So all editors do word count. That's how they do it?
no.
No,
So
Oh,
story analysis, with the story analysis,
right,
the 3-story method editors
right.
charge $14.99 for a 60,000 word document. Anything
depending on the editor.
Yeah, I thought there were differences, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we charge a minimum of $14.99, but each of
Right.
us above that sets our own price. So if you're paying Jay to do one, you're going to pay him a lot more.
It depends.
Well, I
Yeah,
would think so, yeah.
It depends on it depends
Right.
on their experience. You know.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
And
So, but that's kind of the minimum, and then and then it's basically by word count above that. So if you're writing 120,000 words, you can negotiate with your editor what an appropriate fee is going to be, and then some of them, for some kinds of editing, again, it's going to depend on the editor and what they want to charge. I typically go by word count. I know Valerie for some stuff does it by the hour. It just depends on the editor's preference and the agreement that you reach.
so after
know.
the story analysis, it's ready for, I mean, then it goes back to the writer and the writer does all their, but then if the writer wants that gone over again, edit again, it's another $14.99?
No.
Yes.
no,
Well, depending
No.
depending on your editor.
Oh, okay. All
So-
right, I'm just trying to figure this out. Go ahead.
so here's kind of the delineation. You do the developmental or the story analysis first.
Right,
That's the macro to
Right.
see if the story even works. Then it goes back to the
Right.
writer to do any fixings. Once they've got it as best they can, then it goes to the line editor. And that's just to make sure that the sentences work and
Who's the line edit? So then I have to hire a line editor.
yes.
It could be the same person.
It could,
but I
yeah,
mean-
sometimes it depends on
But I-
you. That's
but-
up to you.
But I
Okay,
think
but-
what Mary is asking is like, let's say you do,
Yeah, there's no
Valerie,
feedback.
let's say you do a developmental edit or the, whatever you call the first pass, you send it back to Mary. Mary does some work and she's like, I'm still not comfortable that the story works. Can you look at it again?
Like a quick read through to find out if the fixes fixed it.
Yeah. Like, hey, is this what you mean? Is that
Yeah,
what you, is that
because
what you mean, Mary?
otherwise it's not, yeah, exactly, Roland. Because otherwise, if I don't get on what I've done, what's the point? It's just a thought. I'm just throwing that out there.
It really isn't a quick read through. Because if I read the whole novel, that takes as long as it takes to read a book. And then I do the report and then we meet. So if you want me to reread the changes, then I'd have to go through that whole process all over again. So yeah, you would have to pay it all over again. But most people that get a diagnostic don't need to do it again because they've got.
Yeah, but if they're learning, if it's their first time, Valerie, and they're learning, students need feedback. I mean, it's fine the way you do it, but
you would get feedback from.
I know, but feedback on what corrections, what you've learned from the initial feedback that you've gotten,
You
See,
could
this is
have
more like
beta
very-
readers at that point, because if
Yeah.
you've done that section, you could then hand it off to beta readers and be like, hey, when I was working on this, they said for example, world building was really weak. So you hand it to your beta readers and you go, I want to know what you think of the world building when you read this book. And that's the only thing you have them look for. And then they are giving you that feedback of, it was good, it was bad, I couldn't get into it. And you can see if you improved on that section.
But Catherine, how do I know if the beta readers know what they're doing?
Because you've been really specific.
Because what you're,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
you're looking for beta readers that let's say for instance, I write urban fantasy. Like my beta readers have to love urban fantasy.
Okay,
And
I'd have to get to know some
I can-
people. Yeah.
So you have to find them in groups. You develop this little group. You question them, like, what urban fantasy do you like, to make sure that's even in line with the kind of urban fantasy.
Okay,
And I don't know what you write, but that's my example for me. And then if I really needed to do it, you can even find beta readers that you pay small amounts in, like on Fiverr and things like that. And and you send them through a questionnaire, like people then you're hiring somebody who specifically likes your genre to read your book. You don't pay them a ton.
like
but
a
it's lot
reader.
less.
You're a
Yeah.
reader in my genre.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing that's going to happen is when you think you're ready, you'll have a multiple beta readers and they love this kind of book. So they're going to give you feedback. Oh, does this work? Does this work? You're going to ask them leading questions, like leading in the right way. Like, let me know when you stop, like when you got bored, like, let me know the spots, like JD Barker, JD, like he says, make a note every time you stop reading for the day or for the night. I want to know where.
Yeah, I've
like
been a
where you
beta
stopped.
reader for some people. So those are the questions they ask.
Yeah. So it's like, so
Right.
that will really tell you, and trust me, beta readers will tell you this story doesn't work, or I got bored or something like that. And that's the part where I got lost. I don't understand this kind of thing. And that's the kind of stuff that like the developmental edit is designed to do. And if they've given you like the story structure and like it comes out, like you're kind of going to come out of it knowing like what your outline is, like where your peaks and valleys have to be,
Mhm,
where the main character comes back and wraps up this thing here, where that French word at the end that I don't know, the denouement, whatever, I know how to say it.
Yeah. mhm.
Like where all those things are. And like, once you know all those things, you'll know where to fill in those gaps, and then your beta readers will do the rest.
Okay.
And that's
And that
Well,
would
we're
be
not there,
cheaper
but
too.
Hmm?
And it
What's
would
that?
be cheaper too than going right back to the developmental, unless like the beta readers sit there and they're like, this was all still super bad. And then you would know you would need to go back to somebody. But usually once you've done the developmental and you've done that section, you test it with beta readers, because those are the people who would be reading your book and they could give you the feedback from that genre, and you would get like your grade from that.
Also, when you work with a 3-story method editor, you still have email access to them for as long as you need it, really. So you can, I mean, there is not the expectation that they would redo work unless that was something you negotiated. But you can always check in with them and say, hey, I worked really hard on this section and I still feel like it needs some work. What do you recommend? You know, maybe they'll give you a craft book recommendation, or, you know, a podcast episode that they heard that they thought maybe
A resource, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Well,
gives
when
me an
you're-
idea.
One technique, and I don't know if any of you do this kind of thing, but like I've had people say, like, can you go through your book and do your own outline of it? Like do a sort of like a reverse outline. So like the book is done. I want to see I want you to go through and tell me all the things that happen. And so then you could either, that'll give you a good idea, but also like I've had an editor say, I can do this I can look at your outline and give you some suggestions for this amount of money or something. That's maybe when the hourly part comes in. Here's my recommendations. If you really need a spot check, here's what I want you to do this work, and then send me that. And then I'm going to go through that and let you know, if it flows from that 30,000 foot level.
Okay.
Excellent suggestions.
Yeah, thank you very much, all of you.
I like this round robin kind of popcorn sort of. Everybody's
Well, I'm that nebulous book coach that no one knows what he does. And but I tell people, I don't know anything. I just know all the people that do it. So like, I don't actually do the work. I just tell you what to do and then tell you who to go send it to.
Smooth, yes.
And keep you motivated to keep writing.
Yeah. Book coaching or writing coaching, you were asking about what that is. And that's more, well, like Roland was saying, offers resources and places. It's all about accountability too, I guess,
Mhm.
really good at.
Yeah, if you have writer's block, if you need accountability, you need to carve more time out of your day. If you're stuck, it's like
a life
I'm not going to
for books.
It's a book life coach. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Somebody
Life
to
of a book.
brainstorm with or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Help you with an outline maybe, or something like that.
Mhm.
Whatever. The reason why it's such a nebulous sort of, I don't really know what
It's a catch-all, yeah.
is because we meet you where you are, and every writer has another issue that they're trying to
Mhm,
get past. And so
mhm.
yeah, we just meet you where you're at, and that's different for everybody.
And in all fairness, I think my first one, that's exactly what she was a book coach. But she wanted to meet me where I was, but I didn't know where I was, so I couldn't help her meet me where I was. So
It's their job to know, kind of, though.
Like I said before, it's just like finding a good therapist. Some of them are better than others.
Some of them are new.
Right.
So
right.
and some of the and she might be great for some other author. She just
She's
wasn't
a
yours.
wonderful person,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
and I put it all on me. I put 98% on me because of I had recently lost my husband. I was going through grief. There was a lot of stuff going on in my life. So it was 90% me. She did the best she could. She was the other side of the country. So all we could do was video conferencing. So, yeah.
Well, I know you say you put it on yourself, but
Mhm.
it's, it should have been her job as well to meet you at the level where you are. So, yeah. So cut yourself some slack in that
Yeah.
area.
Thank you.
Yeah, there
Counselor.
is.
I'm working
there
on
is-
it, counselor.
There is
Yes.
there is a responsibility, if you as a counselor realize you're not a good fit with a client, you
Right.
have a responsibility to tell them too.
Absolutely. And
You
help
know.
them get someone that is right.
It is, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's always money involved, right? It is non-refundable. So that's why I asked if it was hourly or a package kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah, it just depends on the editor and the deal you work with them.
Right, yeah.
If you go to the agency page on Jay's website, sorry, that's my
Uh-huh.
you'll see all of the different editors there, and we all do free discovery calls, so you can always like test the chemistry or read up on going to their website.
Yeah, I know. It's wonderful. Yeah, right. I think you're all tremendously skilled, and it's just I have to get over the first experience, and I have to do the zero draft, and I have to get I want to get a bit more competent in my skills in writing, and then
A
and then
great
do it,
place
you know?
maybe is to sign up for those scene analyses that we do. They seem scary,
Eventually, eventually.
but they are really good, and it can give you an idea of if like you're ready to take that feedback yet or not, or if like you're like, oh yeah, okay, this wasn't as scary. Erin only makes you cry a few times.
Very what do you write?
I write, well, I'm right now it's a thriller. But I have dabbled in, I guess what is called women's fiction, but I hate to call it women's fiction because I think men would enjoy it too. So I call it inspiration, and but thriller is what I'm doing now.
Cool.
Well,
So,
thanks
yeah.
for showing up, everybody.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and meeting all of you and your
It was
comments.
fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, I have
Thank
a
you.
5 o'clock meeting I need to pop over to, so I'm gonna shut this all down, and yeah, thanks.
Have a nice evening, everybody.
Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you, Valerie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.